Good evening. We'll start the webinar shortly, so just bear with us whilst the participants are joining the room. Good evening. A really warm welcome to you all this evening. I'm Jenny Thompson. I'm Assistant Principal at Worthing College, and I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague at Haywards Heath, Chris Mummery, who is the Head of Learning. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I really hope over the coming weeks and months we can see many of you face to face. Thank you. Next slide, please. As an outstanding provider, we are so delighted that we are the best college in Sussex, in that we have the best Ofsted results across all of the board. We are so delighted with some of the comments that Ofsted gave to us, and in particular, I really like this quote that kind of tells you exactly what we're about. Learners and apprenticeships benefit greatly from the expertise of their teachers, and we really hope that over the coming weeks and months, you really get to know us and get to see what we do on a day-to-day basis. Next slide, please. We think the most important thing to be the best student at Haywards Heath and Worthing College is not necessarily to be the best academic student, but it is to have the best behaviours. And we really feel that the most successful student at Haywards Heath and Worthing College will be the ones who have the right structures and the right weekly routines. So timetabling your lessons is really important. And what we have in front of you here is a really typical kind of timetable schedule that an A-level and an applied student will have across the week. You can see that this student is taking maths, that's in the blue, applied law in the kind of orangey beige, and French in the green. And they are 4-hour lessons. They're two-hour lessons in a week, so it makes up 4 hours per week. So therefore, an average student will have 12 hours per week in an A-level or applied A-level classroom. Coupled with that, we will expect every student to take 6 hours of independent study. So you can see the corresponding green with the 2 hours in it would be the corresponding 6 hours that we would expect each student to do outside of their lessons to get the best behaviours and get the best possible grades that they can achieve. So therefore, what we would expect is that you should be able to, as a student at Haywards Heath and Worthing, be able to contain your working week within the college hours if your behaviours from the beginning are really well structured. Our lessons start at 8:30 and they finish at 4:05. So if you have a really good weekly routine, you'll be able to have every evening and every weekend free. For those students that are doing academy or aspire, of course it would be on top of that, and you would have to work outside of this weekly kind of 30-hour routine that we really do want to kind of get into a really good structure at the start. What we would like you to do is kind of have a think about any of the questions that you have as Chris and I are going through this presentation. If you could pop them in the Q&A and we'll be able to answer them during the end. So if you've got any questions about this timetable and behaviours, just pop them in the Q&A and we'll get to them. Next slide, please. I spoke a little while ago about homework and the 6 hours worth of homework per A-level or applied general. And we really think we work hard on the VESPA mindset, and that is helping students to get the best vision for themselves, where do they want to go, to put in the most effort, so that is a 30-hour week at college, to have the best systems and structures to make sure you've got the right folders and you work at the correct time, that you practice what you preach and you go through your notes and your homework and you work on exam questions where appropriate, and you have the right attitude, so don't give up. And we call that the VESPA mindset, and we work really hard in the first few weeks to get your systems in place and to get yourself kind of on a path to a vision. And what happens over the year, we work on the other 3 mindsets throughout the year. Next slide, please. Independent study, as I mentioned, is a massive component of this. Now, we don't just send you away to do your homework at Haywards Heath or Worthing. There is a really clear structure that we have within our little homework packs that will help you develop all of these VESPA structures. Generally speaking, it will consist of 5 separate components. You'll have an activity that will help you recap your notes and make sure that they're the best they can be for revision and knowledge and understanding. We give you some glossaries and we give you some definition tests, etc., so you can secure your knowledge. We give you some applied exam questions so you can really put to practice, a bit like game day that England are playing at the minute. So when the matches come, you're ready and prepared for these exams. We will then give you some flipped learning, and you might be familiar with that, which is preparation for next lesson, so you understand what topics we're doing. And the interleaving task is kind of interspersing different topics from different weeks and perhaps different years, which emulates an exam or a paper that you would do either in January or at the end of the year. And once again, this would be 6 hours per subject per week. Next slide, please. So how do you actually know how well you're doing at Worthing and Haywards Heath? Well, we have regular progress checks throughout the year. If you look at the top kind of triangular looking boxes, this kind of emulates an A-level student. So you will have your first big test in October, another one in December, March and May, and they are called your formal progress points. So they're probably tests, exams or assessments. Underneath of that, you can see 1 to 11. By the time that you get to June in your first year or your second year, you will have had 11 separate assessments. So 4 formal ones, and the rest will be made up by every third week, you will have a little formal assessment, and that might be an in-class test or an essay or a project-based work. So you'll have 11 assessments as you go through. At the bottom there in the blue triangles, you will have various different ways in which we assess you in applied A-levels, and that is like applied law or applied sport, exercise science, applied science. And there will be a mixture of exams and coursework. Generally speaking, your coursework will be perhaps from September to December. You will then have an exam unit, then you'll do some more coursework units, and then another chance to sit or resit an exam unit at the end of the year. And all of these are posted on the parental portal or C-Space, of which Chris will tell you about shortly. Next slide, please. So nice segue onto the next one, and I'm going to pass over you to my colleague, Chris, just to tell you a bit more about how to see your progress.
Thanks, Jenny. So once enrolled, all students will have access to something called C-Space, and you can see that on the screen here in front of you. This is basically a one-stop shop that will give students key information to support their progress at college. So, for example, it includes information on attendance, the courses a student is currently studying, information about punctuality, and also formal assessments. So as Jenny mentioned previously, the formal progress points will be on C-Space so that students can track their progress and see how they're doing against their minimum expected grade. So the minimum expected grade will be based on a student's performance at GCSE. So on C-Space, the student can see how they're performing in each assessment against those minimum expected grades, and also the progression they're making from assessment to assessment. That's really important, going back to what Jenny was talking about in terms of the VESPA model, that students engage with this data and take ownership over their learning to track their progress. So it's really important that it's something that students actively engage with. They can access targets that are set by their teachers on C-Space as well. So it's not just about keeping track of the grades. It's really important that students look very carefully at the targets they need to improve from assessment to assessment to ensure they can consolidate their learning and also improve where required. Now, from September, the college will also be introducing a parent and carers portal, so where students can give permission for this data to be shared directly with parents as well. So that ensures that everyone involved in the process, teachers, students, parents and carers, can all see the progress, see where there may be issues, and obviously see hopefully where students are progressing very well against their targets. Next slide, please. All students will also have access to a virtual learning platform for every course. So at Haywards Heath, we manage this through Microsoft Teams. So you'll be able to access a team for each of the individual courses which you're enrolled on. There'll also be an all-student team as well, where you'll be able to follow key information that's posted centrally about what's going on at Haywards Heath. Students will be able to access learning resources via Teams with their PC, Mac, laptop, tablet device or smartphone, and we encourage all students to bring a device with them into college, which they can then use in their lessons. If a student doesn't have their own device, they can also borrow a laptop from the Learning Resource Centre to use in lessons. When students enroll at Hayward Heath and Worthing, students will also have access to the full Microsoft Office 365 suite, which obviously includes their email account, the full Microsoft Office package, and of course Teams, as well as lots of other teaching and learning applications as well. Next slide, please. At Hayward Heath and Worthing, we have a dedicated team of student tutors who provide holistic pastoral support. All students will have a weekly 45-minute group tutorial with their tutor, as well as 4 one-to-ones. So that will be in addition to the timetable that Jenny went through previously. These one-to-ones will first of all focus on the transition from school to college, which obviously, for a lot of students can be a challenging one, going from year 11 to year 12 in a new environment. And then it will be about tracking progress, again against minimum expected grades, looking at attendance, punctuality and achievement. And also when students start to reach the end of their studies, and so at the end of year 1, we'll start to look at this, their progression after college. So thinking about plans in terms of UCAS application, for example, careers and apprenticeships. Student tutors provide a balance of challenge and support to students. So in the group tutorial sessions, students follow a weekly ACES program, and this program includes interactive workshops that are centered around personal development. And in case you're wondering, ACES stands for Attitudes, Choices, Employability and Skills, and it's designed to support and realize the overarching vision of preparing and inspiring students to be global citizens. In addition to that, we've got our Progression Plus team, which provides invaluable career support for students who are trying to work out their career path, and also advice about higher education as well. So that all works, and they work very closely with our student tutors. Next slide, please. Over to you, Jenny.
Oh, still going mute even after all these months. So we've got a couple of questions in the chat, but please, please do ping some in. I'm sure, we'll spark some questions and answers in a bit, but we've got 2 questions. I'll answer one, I'll pass the other one over to Chris. Are students expected to be in college every day from 8:30 or only when we have lessons? I kind of put that slide up a little bit earlier with the timetable on. So Megan or Courtney, would you just whiz back to the timetable slide for me, please? And I put that on there because whilst you don't have to be in college every day, when all day, every day, like you do in school, as I said to you earlier, if you start with the really good behaviours from the beginning and spend your college day in college completing your work, we've got so many outstanding facilities. We've got Wi-Fi across the building, we've got 10 breakout zones, we've got a library, we've got a whole host of areas for you to study in, notwithstanding the fact that all of your teachers and pals are at college. So no, you don't have to be there, but we really do try and encourage you to be there so you can utilise our fantastic facilities. And with Hayward Heath just opening, if you've had a chance to go around, there's no need to go home. Over to you, Chris.
There's a question here about the Sports Academy. Are the Sports Academy hours within 8:30 to 4:05 p.m? Yes, they are. What we do is students who are interested in the Sports Academy, we try where possible to tailor a timetable around the Sports Academy slots, which are normally on a Wednesday afternoon and a Friday morning, currently at Hayward Heath. So it is something that's very much part of our enrichment program and embedded into our timetable. There's one more question here from Sharon. Is independent learning homework set by teachers or something the students will do themselves? That's a really good question, actually. It's kind of a combination of both. Obviously, the idea of independent learning is it's guided by the student, but obviously students require guidance from their teachers to support that as well. So on teams, for all subjects, students will be given clear guidance on what they should be doing outside of lessons, and that is then followed up and managed by the students. So it's really, really important that when you're doing your sixth form studies, that you understand that you need to do as much, if not more, work outside of lessons than you do in lessons themselves. So it's a really, really important part of the progression from GCSE up to level 3. Jenny, there's another question here about EPQ. Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, EPQ is the Extended Project Qualification, and this is a course that essentially will generally work on a project-based essay dissertation type activity, and it's essentially you choose a topic that really, really interests you. So it could be to do with one of your subjects or something completely left field. but you start that in June of your first year, and you will then work your way through till Christmas of your second year, where you submit your first drafts, and then it's completed at April in your second year. And it's really a well-regarded qualification if you want to go off to university, particularly if you're going to be writing essay-based qualifications. However, if you do art, you can produce an artifact. If you're doing performing arts, you can produce some kind of interactive activity. But if you look on the website at Haywards Heath, it will give you a bit more information. But it is a really exciting project that universities and employers really do value. Just having a quick whiz at the next question before I pass back. Is it possible to change your subject after you've started your course? Yes. You can choose your courses now, and you've got a chance to come to the Year 11 introductory day, which will be emailed to you shortly. There's a chance to change then. And you'll also be able to change all the way through to the end of September, where we will ask you to kind of then hook into your choices for the remainder of the year. So please don't worry, you've got a couple of opportunities to change your subjects, but that would be with somebody who you'd sit down with, and they'd really kind of thrash it out with you, put my teeth back in, just to make sure you've thought about the choices and why you've chosen to change. So yes, there are opportunities to cut a very long story short. We haven't got any more questions, or we might have now. I think another one's just bumped in. Another one for the academies, Chris. Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, just before I go, there's also one question in the chat box. So I'll answer that one first and come back to one of the Q&A. This question is, how do you assess expected grades for subjects not taken at GCSE? I'm assuming that question is about a subject that you might be doing that's a new subject. So for example, sociology or psychology or media studies or film studies, for example. And what we're looking at that, as well as our sort of generic entry requirements, is the kinds of skills that are required for those subjects. So to take, for example, a subject like sociology, the ability to construct arguments, essay writing skills would be really, really important. So students that are good at English and history and got good grades at GCSE in English and history would be suitable for those subjects. A subject like psychology might be a combination of, those kinds of skills, but also logical thinking and, math skills, science skills as well. So obviously, we would look at that, and in terms of our course guidance and advice and enrolment, just make sure that if a student is starting a new course, that it kind of fits in well with their existing skill set. So there's another question on the Q&A. Have you answered that one about Sports Academy enrolment, Jenny?
No, that was the one, Chris. Do you want to?
Sorry, yeah. So can you sign up for the Sports Academy enrolment, or must it already be done? No, definitely you can sign up for at enrolment. When we've had our applicant tours, we have asked anyone who's interested in the Sports Academy to sign up, but that is something that we definitely can do at enrolment, and we'll have representatives from the sports department to log your interest and tell you all about the trials and the plans for that. And obviously it's important we can then try and work that in around your timetable. Any more questions? I think that's the last one on at the moment. If any more, please post them on there.
And no questions at F1, so we've got the last few minutes to pop a question in. We won't kind of keep you hanging, so if there's nothing in the next 30 seconds, I think one's come in at the last minute there. So at what stage is enrolment in year 11? So do you mean as in so the anonymous attendee, at what stage enrolment is in year 11? Do you mean when do you come into college? If you're in year 11 already, then you'll be applying to Haywards Heath as soon as you can now. And then what will happen is that the sooner you get your application in year 11, the sooner in the autumn term you will have an enrolment interview at Haywards Heath. And we usually like to complete them all by December. There are some that kind of roll into the spring term. So have a look on the website, have a look at the applications and pop them in already. Hopefully that's what you were requiring. Can you do sport without enrolling? Chris, do you want to talk about anything that's on in terms of enrichment and sport-wise at Haywards Heath?
Yeah, so the Sports Academy is open to all students, not just students who enrolled on PE or sport courses. And there also will be a wider enrichment programme at Haywards Heath next year as well. So obviously this year we've been slightly limited in terms of what we can do in terms of enrichment because of the COVID restrictions. But next year, we're hopeful we'll be able to broaden out and widen our offer in terms of enrichment. So in addition to the Sports Academy, Performing Arts and Visual Arts Academies as well. And also we're just really interested in what students have in terms of their general interests, and where there's kind of demand in certain areas, we can look at putting on those in enrichment offers as well. So that's a really important part of the overall experience of being at college. It's not just about the curriculum subjects, it is also about the enrichment side as well. And that will include things like visits and guest speakers and all that kind of stuff as well. And there's just one more question that's coming through the chat. It says, is there an open day for parents at any point? Well, we're obviously hoping that around November, we'll be able to do a regular open evenings and open days for anyone really. So that will include prospective students and parents to come in and have a look around the college, ask questions, speak to members of staff, because it's obviously something we've missed this year, unfortunately, having to do virtual open events. But the plan is we'll have a full kind of open evening and open day in the autumn term.
I think that's a good segue to Susie. That's your question. Are you hoping to have face-to-face open evenings in the autumn term? Fingers and toes and everything else crossed. Yes, we are. We can't wait to see all of our prospective students and parents back on site. And from Thomas, you've asked a question about when do year 10s need to apply? Well, again, you're more than happy to come and have a wander around when we have our open days, but we ask you to apply in year 10. And the sooner you can apply in year 10, the sooner we can get you in for enrolment and you'll be guaranteed your choices. So please, if you've not had a look around Haywards Heath, really keep an eye out for the open day so you can go and have a look around and you'll be able to meet the staff, ask people loads of questions and have a look at the fabulous building there. One question, I'll pass you back to Chris. When will we be officially offered a place? You'll be officially offered a place when you come in for an interview, and your place will be guaranteed as soon as we get your results in August. So it'll be confirmed then. And over to you from another question from Susie, Chris.
A question about how many pupils do you have for each year group? Currently we have around 300 year 12 students, and we're expecting about 300 to 350 students joining us next year. So that'll take us up to around 600 to 650 students. The building itself has capacity for around 1,000 students. So as the college grows, we're building up to around 1,000 students, which would obviously then be approximately 500 in each year group. But next year, we're expecting around 300 to 350 in each year group.
Okay, we've probably got time to answer one more question if it comes up. Don't miss out on your opportunity, folks. Okay, well, we'll close there for the evening, and I just want to close by saying thank you ever so much for attending this evening. I hope you've been given some information by Chris and myself, and I really do hope to see many of you at Haywards Heath, either at college from September or certainly coming to the open days over the coming months. If you've got any further questions, please email info@haywardsheath.ac.uk and we'll be able to answer your questions. So good evening to you all. Go and enjoy the sunshine. It's a beautiful evening, and thanks ever so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.